Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a program on AADL TV where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes in a featured category. Today's category is hot and spicy. I'm Beth and I'm here with Elizabeth and Katie to tell us about their recipes. So Katie, tell us about your recipe.
All right, so this week I chose a recipe from a website called glutenfreebaking.com, but this recipe does not have to be gluten-free, calls for gluten-free all-purpose flour. So if you just don't need to be gluten-free or you don't have it, just use regular all-purpose flour. But anyway, it is a jalapeno cheddar cornbread. So it's just pretty much a basic but really delicious cornbread recipe, but then you add cheese and jalapeno peppers to it. I actually ended up using one jalapeno pepper, a serrano pepper, and a Fresno pepper, and I was really glad that I did. That was just what I had in the house, but it made the cornbread really pretty because the Fresno pepper is red and the other two were green. So it's just like this colorful cornbread, and I use cheddar cheese, but this recipe says that you could also use pepper jack, which I would imagine would make it even a little bit more spicy. But this was just a really lovely recipe. It was so pretty coming out of the oven. I took a picture of it, and then it was also totally gorgeous on the plate, smothered with butter and honey, which is how I eat cornbread. And the taste of the spicy cornbread with the sweet of the butter and honey was awesome. So that was definitely cool. And then served it up with a pot of chili, which is how the other way I like cornbread. And so it was just this overall really like great compliment to a hot and spicy dinner. And then I actually thought I was going to have a piece to show you, but I got home from work yesterday and it was gone. So that's a little bit of a testimony to how good this was. And I'll definitely make this again.
That sounds good. I say that about everything.
I know.
I was just wondering, because, you know, my son has developed this awesome cornbread recipe that he makes in the skillet. And it seems like you could add the peppers right to it.
Definitely. I made skillet cornbread before, and actually, yes, there is on the recipe notes a way to place it in an 8-inch cast iron skillet. So yes, you could definitely do that with this recipe. Or I think if you had your own cornbread recipe, you could just add peppers and cheese to it and you get a spicy cornbread.
Katie, how finely were they chopped? Were they like, did you leave them in rings, or were they like really tiny diced, or what happened?
I would say not a tiny dice, but definitely just like a dice. Yep.
Okay, cool. Sounds awesome.
Yeah, was very, very good. Tell us what you chose this week, Elizabeth.
Sure. So I made a new to me recipe, actually. I subscribe to Real Simple because I like their cleaning tips and their recipes. And I was really intrigued by this recipe in here called Summer Nachos. And basically it's like, they kind of advertise it as like healthier nachos, whatever. I love nachos all the time. Don't care if they're healthy or not. But it's basically corn and zucchini that you bake on top of the chips with cheese, and then you top it with some cilantro, sliced red cabbage, and you make an avocado cream with some Greek yogurt. So you blend avocado, Greek yogurt, lime juice, and jalapeno in a little food processor and kind of dollop that on. But the hot and spicy part comes in actually with the corn and zucchini, because before you put them on the nachos, you kind of saute them in olive oil with smoked paprika, cayenne pepper, and chili powder. And it actually gets them a really nice kick. And I like spicy things, as does my partner. So I added a little even more cayenne and smoked paprika than the recipe called for, just to give it a little more oomph. And so you saute it up, spread it on the chips with the cheese, bake it, and then top it with the toppings. And it was really, really good, very easy, great for a weeknight. It did feel like, honestly, not that unhealthy. I mean, chips aren't great for you, but their veggies were awesome. And we put a lot of the cabbage and cilantro and toppings on it. And it was spicy. It was good. Oh, I also sliced up some additional jalapenos and we put those on. So that gave it the kick too. But the corn zucchini mixture was a real surprise. And I haven't really I've made a ton of stir-fried vegetables, but I guess not in that kind of spicy, smoky style before. And it was really good. I'm definitely going to make it again. It came out great. It was super easy. And I actually used frozen corn, but I got some fresh corn in my CSA today. And so you could use that too. And that would be great as well. So yeah, that is my summer nachos. And honestly, it looked like pretty much just like that, which never happens to me. So I was extremely proud when it came out of the oven.
Yeah,
Well, it looks really good. That's interesting take on nachos for sure. The crema had jalapeno in it too.
Yes, it was an avocado, a couple tablespoons of Greek yogurt, some lime juice, and then a very thinly kind of sliced jalapeno that I put in the food processor, and it turned into the crema. So that had a little bit of a kick as well, which was nice.
Yeah, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I would not have thought of zucchini and corn for the nachos, but I mean, I've got plenty of those things, so that sounds good.
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting to do it without beans, because that's what I always think of as on nachos. So I would recommend it. Beth, over to you.
All right. Well, my recipe is one I got inspired by something I saw on the internet, and I decided to make it my own. And it's actually a nacho casserole. So it begins with hot chili beans, first ground beef, onions, saute that, and then add hot chili beans, tomatoes, black beans, an envelope, but we buy in bulk the taco seasoning usually. So a couple tablespoons of that, onions, and essentially you're making a chili and corn too. And again, I did use frozen, but I have fresh corn as well now. But so the way I changed it from what I read about was you're supposed to add like 2 bags of spicy tortilla chips. And I already had some Ann Arbor tortilla chips. So I wanted to incorporate those. So because they are, first of all, they're kind of expensive. So I didn't want to pour like a whole bunch on there, but I laid them out and I got the really thick ones on the bottom. I didn't do the entire bottom of, layer, but essentially it was layers of the chips and then half the chili cheese and another layer. But parts of it didn't have chips in it. And those chips really held up well because they're so hearty. So I was real pleased with that when they came out. The folks that used the original recipe were saying that the chips turned to mush, like if they used as many as they had indicated, and they're so thin. So I was happy with the result. I think it would go great with Katie's cornbread. And I even thought about adding, I have some spinach and like I said, I have a ton of zucchini. Thought about it, but I decided just to make it, heavy protein. So it was really tasty coming out of the oven. I have a picture. And we'll see how well it does as a leftover because I have some for lunch today. Not sure. We'll see. What's the worst thing that could happen? It's got plenty of cheese and, it tastes pretty good. And I also added cilantro at the end. I would probably put some fresh jalapeno on it too, to give it that greenness. So that's my recipe. Any
So
questions?
I have a question, Beth. So you call it, you said it was called casserole,
Mhm.
but was it on a baking sheet in the
Yeah.
oven? Okay, so
It was in a, yeah, layered on a
it was
grease.
layered. Okay, I was wondering
Mhm.
if it was mixed or layered. Okay,
Yeah,
that
it
makes
was
sense.
layered. But I only did a couple layers of each because like I said, I wasn't too heavy on the chips. Also, I
Right.
didn't want to use every last chip for this. Oh, I used the lime chips too, which did add a
Oh,
nice little tang. I
love
love those
those.
chips. I think that you could get away with buying one of the small bags of these chips.
Hmm.
Yep. And the way I layered it, and since it wasn't fully layered, you wouldn't have to spend as much on them. But yeah, I think it's just something to have when you want some nachos and want to heat up your house in the summer. Um, any other questions or?
I just want to say that I love that you used the Ann Arbor tortilla chip lime chips, because those are probably my favorite chips in the entire world. Like if I had to pick one to eat forever, that's going to be it. So love that that's included in your recipe and can't wait to try it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I decided to go with this recipe, because I told you guys earlier, I was trying to do some other kind of stuff out of my comfort zone, and I was like, well, this is not a good time to experiment with beef, and so I settled on nacho casserole. When I put it in the freezer, I wrote nacho casserole, my casserole, in case anyone cares. All right, and is there anything else that people want to share?
Sounds like Katie needs to start writing that on her last piece of cornbread.
Yeah.
Nacho cornbread. That's right.
My cornbread.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share. And be sure to click on the link below to see AADL events on aadl.org, to see the recipes that we talked about and add some comments if you have any. Join us next time when we'll talk about recipes for frozen treats. We're looking forward to seeing what you make, and thanks for sharing.